I'm Barbara Gregorich, and in my previous video, in which I read Chapter 1 of Exit Velocity, I talked about 5 features of fiction which writers often try to squeeze into their first chapters. Not all of these 5 features are immediately necessary, but some of them are. That is, it's necessary for a writer to grapple with and develop some of these 5 at the beginning of a novel. The 5 highlights I spoke about were character, setting, the inciting incident, conflict, and foreshadowing. After I spoke about them, I promised that in my next video, that's this one, I would talk about which of these 5 fictional features appear in Chapter 1 of Exit Velocity and how I think they work within my novel. I will be creating more of these analytic videos, and I'm calling them Inside Fiction. So here you are inside my very first Inside Fiction analysis. Let's look at the 5 features in the order I introduced them in the previous video. First was character. In Exit Velocity, I introduced my main character, Rowan Pickett, on the first page. The entire novel is told from 3 points of view: Rowan, Jake, and Deeply. Rowan's point of view is the first. That's because it's her story that drives the plot forward. She's the one who's out there looking for a job, looking to overcome her grief, looking to once again regain society and return to the things that matter most to her. In creating characters, writers need to sprinkle character information across the book in a way that reveals things about the characters and seems true to the person and true to the story. In other words, does not seem like a nonfiction description or an information dump. So, what are some of the things readers might notice about Rowan? On page 1, what's revealed about Rowan is that she is alone. There is nobody with her. That's significant. It's not good to be alone. Humans are social animals. We learn that one of the reasons Rowan is alone is that her sister was murdered in a high school shooting a year ago. Rowan used to go places with her sister, but that is no longer possible. There's another reason Rowan is alone, but that's not revealed until chapter 2. We see that Rowan is grieving. It has been only 1 year since her sister's death, and Rowan is not over her grief. We grasp that Rowan is the kind of person who's very aware of her emotional state. She's aware that she's still grieving, but that she must try to get through the grief and back into the working world. In fact, work is a key word in Rowan's world, because in order to live, to buy food and clothing and shelter, she needs a job. All of these things are revealed in the first page of Exit Velocity. In the remaining 7 pages of that chapter, we learn other things about Rowan. We learn her views, or part of them, on gun control. We learn that she has an enemy she's afraid of, Zeb Snotty, whom she calls a fascist. Further, we learn that she's very comfortable attending a political protest demonstration, has in fact been doing it since she was the height of a poster board. We sense that she's a blue-collar worker, a member of the working class. Rowan is used to physical labor. She worked at Wheeler's Bikes, where she lifted bikes all day long, moving them from one location to another and repairing them. And by the end of the chapter, we see that Rowan believes in and practices self-defense. There's a lot of building of and revealing of character in the first chapter, and I hope it makes readers interested in Rowan and sympathetic toward her. There's a lot more building and revealing in chapter 2, which is also from Rowan's point of view. Setting, the second aspect of world building I want to talk about, is also revealed in the first chapter. If you read the chapter or listened to me read it in the previous video, you were able to discern that the story is set in Chicago. When the story opens, Rowan is walking up Clark Street to join the demonstration at Federal Plaza. As the chapter draws to its end, you might glean that Rowan lives somewhere on the south side because she's going home, and in order to get home, she takes a southbound L. The story takes place in the present. I don't state that, I don't give a date, but I find that when I'm reading contemporary fiction, I assume a story is taking place in the present day unless I'm told otherwise. In most cases, that's a safe assumption. In my previous video, I said I thought readers would understand character as it appears in the first chapter and also setting. And then I said that readers might or might not immediately grasp what the central conflict of the story is. I, as the author of Exit Velocity, believe that the central conflict of the novel is that Rowan wants a job that will pay her sufficient wages so that she can afford food, clothing, shelter, health care, and some recreational spending. But that finding such a job in our society is extremely difficult and becoming more difficult each day. Writers learn early on that, broadly speaking, there are several basic conflicts in fiction. Not all of these conflicts are in the same novel, of course. There's one basic conflict in each novel. There's human against human, as in combat novels and Westerns. There's human against self, as in psychological novels. There's human against the physical world, as in Jack London's stories of survival. And there's human against society. The conflict in Exit Velocity falls into the human against society category because it's the economic structure of our society that keeps millions of blue-collar workers in poverty without anything other than their job to fall back on, and also keeps them from a fulfilling education, travel, leisure time, and self-actualization. So, in the first chapter, we learn that Rowan needs a job, but only as the story progresses do we learn what kind of job. And we learn that such jobs are not readily available to the working class. More and more, workers are forced to hold down 2 or 3 jobs just to meet their family's basic needs. This is what I see as the central conflict, that the kind of jobs workers both need and want are not the jobs the capitalist class is willing to provide. The conflict is between what workers want and what the capitalists want. Only a hint of this appears in the first chapter. Having more than a hint of the conflict in the first chapter of most books might be too much. It's better, I think, that readers begin to piece together bits of information in order to understand something as important as the major conflict. Fourth, I spoke about the inciting incident. This is the event that precipitates the plot. The character's life before the inciting incident is going in one direction. The character's life after the inciting incident is going in a different direction. In fact, because of the inciting incident, the character before is very different from the character after. If you've read Exit Velocity, or perhaps just the first chapter, you might be making guesses as to what the inciting incident is. I can tell you what the inciting incident is not. It is not the death of Rowan's sister. There are 2 reasons why Clary's death isn't the inciting incident. The first is that it occurred a year earlier. It did not occur within the time frame of the novel. Second is the fact that the inciting incident is always live. That is to say, it takes place on the page, not in the memory of a character, not in backstory, but in an actual scene within the novel. So Clary's death is not the inciting incident. Now, the inciting incident does not have to occur in the first chapter, although in order to work well, it does have to occur by maybe the second chapter, say within the first 20 pages of a novel. I feel that the inciting incident is, in fact, in chapter 1 of Exit Velocity. I think many readers will guess that the inciting incident is the scene in which somebody grabs Rowan from behind, throws a garbage can over her, sits on top of the garbage can, and holds her prisoner until the protest demonstration has moved away. I can see that a reader would think this is significant, that sooner or later it will be revealed who did this and why, and that this might change Rowan's life. However, the garbage can incident is not the inciting incident. Instead, the inciting incident is something that looks very minor, but turns out to be very major. The inciting incident is a combination of Rowan spotting a parrot in the sky and the scream she hears as Zeb Snotty is about to grab her. Both of these incidents occur in the first chapter. They do not seem to be related, but they are. They are, in fact, not two separate incidents, but one combined incident. And from here on in, because of this incident, Rowan's life will be very different from what it has been. Finally comes foreshadowing, which, as I said in the earlier video, is a warning, a hint, or a sign of a future event. It's not really necessary for a writer to plant foreshadowings in the first chapter. And as a writer, I don't notice foreshadowings in my first draft and probably not even in my second draft. By the third draft, though, I'm beginning to pick up on how some things in an earlier part of the book are significant to something in the middle or later part of the book. Sometimes I intensify the foreshadowings, but usually I don't. I just let them sit there and hope that happy readers pick up on them. So, are there any foreshadowings in the first chapter of Exit Velocity? Yes, I would say there is minimal foreshadowing. In my previous novel, The F Words, I did some major foreshadowing throughout the first chapter, but not so in Exit Velocity. Any serious foreshadowing, and there is some, takes place deeper in the book. For now, though, I'll point out just a few of the minor foreshadowings in chapter 1 of Exit Velocity. On page 3, when Rowan says of Snotty, his heart is evil, this definitely foreshadows a future event. On page 4, when Rowan's spirits are uplifted by seeing a colorful parrot in the sky and she shouts, "Way to go, bird!" This foreshadows that Rowan and the parrot are going to have a relationship, one which actually starts in chapter 2. The same page and same paragraph as the "way to go, bird" is just before Rowan sees the parrot, she sees something metallic in the sky. A pop and a flash catch her eye. Definitely a foreshadowing of something that will be revealed in chapter 5. There are other minimal foreshadowings in chapter 1, but as I said, the major foreshadowings occur later in the book. So that's it for this video. If you listened to the previous one in which I read all of chapter 1 of Exit Velocity, I hope you were interested in Rowan's character, in the setting, and I hope you were also able to guess at the conflict and the inciting incident, and maybe even pick up on some foreshadowings. Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune in for more readings from Exit Velocity, as well as from some of my other books.